The hurricane season in Jamaica begins on June 1st and culminates at the end of November. It means that a powerful storm can occur during this period, so strong that it can cause extensive damage due to high winds, heavy rainfall, and storm surges. That is exactly what a hurricane is capable of. But what exactly is a hurricane? Understanding this can help one prepare for and respond to these powerful storms effectively.
A hurricane is the most extreme stage of a rotating storm that occurs in our region. When I speak about our region, we're talking about the North Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea. And within these areas, sometimes you have clusters of showers and thunderstorms that develop based on many features. And in those areas, all of them being low pressure areas, they cause clouds to rise. And cloud developing and rising leads to more intense thunderstorm activity usually. And when we have that cluster of thunderstorms, it could be the beginning of what could become a hurricane. So for example, you have a cluster of clouds basically that may have showers and usually have some thunderstorm activity in there. But when you have many of them developing or they get so intense, we might refer to an area of disturbed weather that's over the region, and that would continue to move. But with the rotation of the earth and the forces that act on the surface of the earth, it becomes a somewhat rotating system. So these clouds begin rotating around each other. And so you see the movement basically in that general direction because it's anti-clockwise. Now generally as this thing develops, it gets much more intense with lots more clouds around it developing, but then you could also experience a center being clearly defined that doesn't actually have the clouds, but in that center everything moves around the center, and in the center is really a calm area. So we talk about the center of the tropical cyclone or the eye of the hurricane, and that would actually be in the middle, sometimes very clearly defined, sometimes it's covered by some clouds in the upper atmosphere, but really when you get to the surface it is clear. So that's what happens in the center where you have the eye. And then outside of that, these clusters of clouds with the rotation going around anti-clockwise, you also see some bands of clouds that are coming in to the center. So these are clouds coming in, but they generally form in this general pattern where they come in toward the western side of the center, and then they also extend like that from the southern and eastern side. So we end up with a pattern that looks like this.
So this is the symbol that meteorologists look for on satellite imagery. And once that happens, they say that the hurricane is well defined. Hurricanes are classified into categories based on wind speed, using the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. At its lowest stage, a Category 1 hurricane has sustained wind speeds of at least 74 miles or 119 kilometers per hour. Category 2 sustained wind speeds of between 96 and 110 miles per hour. While some devastation may happen in a Category 1 or 2 hurricane, at Category 3 and beyond, wind speed is greater, and so too is the calamity that can occur.
In this case now, you expect some greater devastating effects. So it's more not just extensive damage, but you expect some devastating impact from the system. You have more trees now being toppled. This is when we refer to it as a major hurricane. Major hurricanes are categories 3, 4, or 5.
Of course, during major hurricanes, large trees may be uprooted, more roofs may get lifted, and power lines are likely to go down, possibly for weeks. It is important to note that wind speed is not the only thing to characterize a hurricane. Heavy rainfall too is expected.
You expect more torrential rainfall usually, especially as you move closer and closer to the center of the system. And you also will experience some storm surge flooding, which occurs really along coastal areas where the wind actually moves the waves of the sea onto the land, and that causes destruction as well. The greatest preparation that we can make for hurricanes is really mental. We have to prepare our minds to recognize that we are in a vulnerable place. Where Jamaica is located is always vulnerable, and so hurricanes can occur at any time during the hurricane season.
There are, of course, physical things that must be put in place to minimize how much you are inconvenienced if a hurricane does occur. These include getting non-perishable food, storing water in case resources become inadequate, and seeing about the exterior of your home, reinforcing windows and walls, and checking for anything that can serve as missiles during heavy winds from the hurricane. You want to do all that you can to achieve a reasonable amount of comfort during and after a hurricane. And of course, if you live in an area where your home construction is insecure, you need to identify and make arrangements with emergency shelters near your home, and continue to monitor local news and weather reports for updates.
One of the things that people tend to rely on is that old rhyme that people talk about, June too soon, October all over. Those two come immediately to mind because they are really myths. So the myth about June being too soon is one of them that we really try to pull people away from, because June is never too soon to prepare for the hurricane season. In fact, the Hurricane Beryl actually began developing in June and moved very close to Jamaica in June. It was on the 1st of July that it started moving into the Caribbean and then impacted us on the 3rd. So June is not too soon for our preparations.
Also, the hurricane season goes until the end of November, and there have been cases where we've had tropical cyclones beyond this period. So it's imperative that we maintain our alertness. Another myth pertains to Hurricane Gilbert, which struck the island in September of 1988. Many Jamaicans are of the view that the hurricane struck Jamaica twice, with many insinuating that it circled the island immediately after it passed. This is so commonly believed that there's even a popular song commemorating the event that echoes those sentiments.
Say for instance, Jamaica is here, and the eye is moving in this general direction, like Gilbert moved from the east to the west. Initially, the winds, because they are moving in this general direction, anti-clockwise, the winds will be coming from the north because they are rotating around the center. But when the center gets to the other side, meaning that the center has already passed and moved to the west, then the winds now, continuing to move anti-clockwise, are coming from the south. So initially they were coming from the north, but then after the eye passes, the winds now come from the south.
So no, Hurricane Gilbert did not hit Jamaica twice, and thankfully so, because we can all agree that a hurricane passing once is enough. No matter the category, hurricanes can have catastrophic effects. It helps when we are prepared.